Alright, so now that we're familiar with the whole layout of Illustrator, let's take a look at how we can get our survey notes into Illustrator. Now we've already set up a layer for those survey notes. It's just a matter of making sure they get in and on that layer. So there are a couple of things that you could do. Actually, I'm going to show you the way that I do it. You may have a different system. But typically what I'll do outside of Illustrator is I will, from Compass, print off a line plot of the cave. And then I'll take my original survey notes, go over to a light table, and transfer my original survey notes onto a more exact and precise line plot with a pencil. So I'll draw that in on my line plot. And then what I'll do is scan in that line plot with my sketches on it. And that way I have a very accurate sketch. So what I'm going to import here is that scan. And we're going to look at placing an image, because really the scan that you're pulling in is an image that you've created, whether it's a JPEG or a GIF or a Targa or PNG or whatever you've decided to scan that in at, or a bitmap even. We're going to pull that in and then we'll trace over it. So let's come up to File and then down to Place. Place, what this allows us to do is place an object outside of Illustrator into Illustrator. Very different from Open. If I chose Open, it would open that file in a new Illustrator document. I want it to be in this Illustrator document. So I'm going to go to Place. Another thing I should mention about Place is that Place, basically Illustrator points to that file when I bring it in. So if I go to, let's see, where are my cave maps? So if I go here and import OC Plan 1, and I place it in, and then a couple days later I rename this to Oak City Plan Sketch Number 1. Next time I go into Illustrator and try to view that once I've placed it in, so I'm going to go ahead and place it here. So I've placed this in. Next time I go to view it, if I've renamed it outside of Illustrator, this Illustrator will point to and look for OC Plan 1, and it won't find it because I've renamed it. Or if I move that file outside of that directory that I grabbed it from, Illustrator won't find it and it won't display it. So it's important to keep your scans organized and not move them once you've placed them in Illustrator. Otherwise, Illustrator will go crazy. So I've placed that one in. I'm going to place in one more. So I've brought in Plan 1. I'm going to go to File, Place, and bring in OC Plan 2, and then we'll go ahead and hit Place. Alright, so there's this. Now, when you scan in a document, make sure you scan it at 100%, and that will bring it in at the actual size. So this is, if I zoom in here, I'm going to use that keyboard shortcut I talked about earlier, Control Spacebar or Command Spacebar. It's a temporary keyboard shortcut. As long as I'm holding it down, it will be the zoom tool. And then I'll click and drag. And I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to turn on my rulers here in Illustrator. I'm going to View, Show Rulers. And let's see, there's 2, 3 inches. Now I'm going to drag this up just close to these rulers and see if I'm close. Alright, so there's 2 inches, 3 inches. Looks, it brought it in exactly to scale. So that is perfect. I'm going to zoom out now. Let's move this over. Alright. So now the next thing that I want to do is get these lined up so that they are where they need to be in relation to each other. One thing that I should mention too, and this is a mistake that you may easily make, is when you place something in or you create an object, you may have clicked on the wrong layer. So if I had accidentally brought these in on the line plot layer, then I need to move them to the survey layer. And I can't really just grab them and drag them over. Maybe that will work. Let's see. Let's try and see if that'll work. No, it doesn't work. So what I need to do is select an object. When I have an object selected, you'll notice here in the palette, let me lock this down so it's not moving around. Okay, when I click on this, you'll see that over on the palette there's a little red square. And that represents that I have something selected on this layer. If I want to move that object now to this layer, I grab this red square, drag it, and drop it. If I want to grab multiple things, I'm going to undo what I just did. Oops, wrong keyboard shortcut. So let's do Control Z. Now I moved it back. If I want to select multiple things, then I'll click and drag and select both of those. Now let's move over here, and now I have both selected. I'll drag them up, and now they're all on the line plot layer, which is, of course, not what I want. So let's move them back to Survey Notes. And let's get these aligned properly. So I'm going to now need my transparency palette to be able to make one of these fairly transparent so I can see through to the other one and line them up. I've printed this off so that there is some overlap to it. That way I can line them up here in Illustrator. And you can do that in Compass when you go to print it off, set it up so that you get a little bit of overlap on these, which helps for Illustrator lining up. So, okay, let's find the opacity. Luckily in Illustrator here, there is a palette, but I also have, if you look up here in the properties bar, there's my opacity. I have something selected and it shows me a property for it. One of them is opacity. If you can't find that, just go to Window and then go down to, let's see, Transparency. There we go. And that opens your transparency palette. Select the object, grab the transparency, drag it down, and now it's semi-transparent. Let's take it to right about there. Okay, there we go. So now that it's transparent, let's zoom in here. There's station A9, and it looks like I have an A9 right there. So I'm going to click right there and drag it over so that it lines up with A9. See, I almost got it, so I'm going to use the arrows on the keyboard to just nudge it over so it lines up really well. Okay, perfect. Let's zoom out. I can change that opacity now. Let's take the opacity back to 100%. And one of the things that I want to do is it looks like this sketch is a little bit better than this other one, so I'm going to move it to the front. So to move something to the front, you select an object. Since this is an object now, the scan is an object, I can go up to the object drop-down menu, arrange it, and I'm going to send it to the front, or bring it, let's see, bring to front. There we go, now it's in the front. Okay, and now this portion of our cave is lined up and ready to go. Now, there are some sections, like when I arrange to front, that I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut here, that it might cover up the part of a sketch that I need to see later. If that's the case, the cool thing with Illustrator is, let's see, let's come over here to our layers. I can expand this out and it shows me every object that I have here. So I can turn off. While I'm sketching, I might have just one sketch showing up, but they're all arranged and laid out on top of one another, and so that I could technically see the entire cave if I wanted to in the old sketches. But I think that's it for placing the document, placing in an image or scan, and in the next tutorial we'll maybe look at making the line plot.